welcome to a new episode of ZI Reacts, the show where we react to news that just happened. And typically, we usually react to E3 news because that's the big news of the day today. Breath of the Wild, the new Zelda game, finally has a title. Today I'm joined by Alfred Tabax, co-host of the podcast and a writer. Say hi, Alfred.
Hi, Alfred.
And a assistant editor on the writing staff here at Zelda Informer, Kristen Rosario.
Hello, glad to be here.
Yeah, I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
No, you actually got dead on right.
Okay,
people
that's awesome.
usually butcher my first name, so don't worry.
All right. Well, obviously, the big news of the day, Zelda Wii U now has an official title, Zelda Wii U /NX, which is Breath of the Wild, not Breath of the Wind, as some people have been saying.
I hate that so much. Like that happened to me when I was posting up everything on the post for Q. It was like Breath of the Wind. Ah, crap.
Yep.
Just.
I know. I was talking with Colin earlier, and he said I keep confusing it, which is something that's going to happen. It's bound to happen, but I'm sure we'll get the hang of it. I even mess up a few times. I've starting to not call it wind as much. But yeah, E3, Nintendo's E3 presentation opened with a trailer for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Showed a lot of stuff. Link in different outfits, some white armor. We saw a lot of scenery, riding horses, using different weapons. I thought that was a pretty great trailer. I know, Kristen, you were very busy covering the trailer, so you might not...
I did get a chance. Like I said before we started recording, I did get a chance to watch it, and right off the bat, I'm thinking, wow, this is Zelda Skyrim.
Yeah, that's actually what I've seen a lot on Twitter, is that
Except,
people are calling this Skyrim, but Zelda.
yeah, exactly. Like they already confirmed they don't have like any of the NPCs besides the old man and none of the towns in it because just a demo. But just imagining with all that, yeah, now it's Zelda Skyrim.
Yeah. So Alfred, what did you think of the trailer for Breath of the Wild?
Whew. Okay, so I was sitting there watching it on my iPhone in my car, so I was out at the time. But I was to to put a pun on it, I was breathless, um, because Ah, it was kind of better than I expected, and I had pretty high expectations for it, and I was still a little skeptical about it before it started, but seeing all the different mechanics, like the hints of cooking and the hints of like more Western RPG elements, mixed in with the typical JRPG elements was pretty cool. That's kind of what I've been saying about this Zelda game that it needs to have. One of my first articles for the site was about that. But I was really, really excited to see all that stuff and um, to see how they made the world feel more alive in the game. yeah, I kind of got even like watching it too. I got kind of like a Wind Waker-y vibe, like with the art style and some of the items and people that show up, like the Kokoros from Wind Waker. I kind of got that Zelda or that Wind Waker feel to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the art style is very reminiscent of the Wind Waker, but just not as cartoony. It takes on a more serious vibe. Alan Numa actually said that this art style is kind of inspired by Japanese anime,
Hmm.
which is not
It looked, oh,
surprising at all.
yeah, you can
Ha-
definitely see that in the trailer.
Oh yeah, I
Have
mean,
you guys seen the anime God Eater?
I have not. I've heard it is great.
It
Yeah,
looks
same.
very, very similar to that kind of style, like in terms of the stylization or style, whatever, how it's stylized in terms of like the characters, just the different way that things move. It looks very similar to that kind of a style of animation. It looks really, really. That's the first thing I noticed right off the bat. I was like, wow, this looks like it could be an anime. Which, you
Definitely.
know, I love playing RPGs that feel like they could be like animes, like great RPGs that don't feel like video games
Oh
for
yeah,
like in a good way.
yeah, this definitely has that feel to it too. Besides the whole Western RPG part, definitely does have that anime feel to it.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'd like to talk about. Kristen, you just mentioned Breath of the Wild has Western RPG elements. This is kind of a comeback for Zelda because in Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, there were some RPG elements in there, like leveling up, having different stats. That's something we haven't seen in future Zelda games after that, but it looks like
Yeah,
Breath of the Wild is taking on more RPG elements.
yeah, core gameplay wise, this the most similar I can feel from this Zelda game is definitely just Zelda 2 with the whole, venturing out system, the different towns, the different NPCs you can talk to, the various different dungeons. This definitely has core wise more of a Zelda 2 feel to it.
Definitely. And, as far as RPG elements go, we have the inventory screen, which actually shows Link, which is something that a lot of RPG games do. Like, if he's in a snowy area and you go to the inventory, you can see Link kind of shivering. I felt kind of bad for him. But
Oh
as you
yeah, I
as you
saw
pick
that.
up as you pick up items and use them, they get damaged. You can upgrade items. You can collect a bunch of different weapons. In the trailer, we did see the Master Sword though, so I'm wondering when we get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
the
we
thing
kind of
too. Oh, go on, Alfred.
okay. Well, we kind of saw. I think they were like I kind of said earlier, or like a while back, but before this, is that I feel like Nintendo's kind of been experimenting with a lot of these elements in previous Zelda games. Because in Skyward Sword, we saw how the shields had a durability to them,
Mm-hmm.
and that they would break after a certain amount of use.
Yeah.
And while it's not necessarily my favorite like thing for an RPG to use like breakable weapons, that is something that's like a bit more of a risky step in a different direction for Nintendo because that makes the game a little bit more difficult because you have to manage your items, you have to manage how durable they are, if they're about to break soon. So it kind of adds like a more like they said in the treehouse, a more survival aspect to the game.
Now
Yeah.
yeah, what I'm curious at is the Master Sword design, because in the title design, you see the Master Sword, but the Master Sword looks like crap. I mean, it looks very worn and stuff.
Yes, it looks
And
very
I'm
dormant.
yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm curious to see if they're going with kind of that Wind Waker route where like you have to like essentially rebuild the Master Sword to get it
Mm-hmm.
back at full strength or something.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. In line with the RPG elements of having to upgrade items. That was something that Aonuma focused on in interviews following the stream. He said, "Yeah, upgrading is going to be a big part of this." And I wouldn't be surprised if you had to kind of rebuild and upgrade the Master Sword like in the Wind Waker.
You know, it'd be even cooler though,
Yeah.
is if that was the last that we saw of that Master Sword, and this game brought in like a new one, like a reforging of a new Sword of Evil's Bane,
Ooh.
to like take out, because the idea is that like they said earlier on, or like I think it was the Kotaku article said that this is 100 years after Link's hibernation from we don't know when. Um,
Yeah.
but so there's that big period of 100 years, and the Master Sword's rusted. So maybe it's time for the Master Sword to be put to rest and a new one to come up.
Could be.
And that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. See, like this is probably the first variation of Master Sword. We're probably gonna like now see like a second variation of it. That would be
Hmm.
interesting to see.
Yeah. So after the trailer, Nintendo followed up with a 6 hour live stream that we all watched. Well, not all of us, but most of us watched to its entirety to report on. And as we're recording this right now, our staff is still hard at work reporting on that, even though our site has been going through some outages because of increased traffic.
Yeah, as of right now, like I said, I have like a good 16 and 17 posts that I have done, but unfortunately the site's just like acting really wonky right now.
Yeah, yeah. So before we dive into some of the mechanics that we've seen in the following giant live stream the Treehouse did, I'd like to talk about the one story element that has me a little intrigued, and I think might have you a little intrigued too. Alfred mentioned earlier, Link, when he wakes up at the beginning of the game, he wakes up in this bathtub type of thing that has been described. I believe it was Kotaku that called it a tomb. Link's been sleeping there for apparently 100 years. So I'm kind of wondering, if this Link is a Link from a previous game that just woke up. after the game ended, he was maybe wounded badly, was about to die, and was sealed into this chamber to revive him, and he woke up 100 years. I hope this gets explained, but what possibilities do you think could be the explanation for why Link has been sleeping for a century?
Timeline. I think it has everything to do with the time. It's placed on a timeline because it has to do with the game before it or the adventure before it. If it's not based on one of the games, what happened? Did Link fail? Did Link succeed? Did Link kind of go?
Watch out!
What happened?
You know, um, if I'm not to be like, I'm trying to be specific with this because Nintendo's always careful with their wordings. Um, in the man, in the timeline, there's the fall of the hero,
Yes.
right? So we
Hmm.
have that whole period where where there's no Link. Um, what would be really cool is if this took place like right after that, like the fall of the hero. I think it's called
I think, yeah, the downfall
the
timeline.
decline of the last hero. Yeah, the hero is defeated, and so that leads into Link to the Past, oracles, and stuff like that. Um, and that would be really cool to see because we don't know how that happened. Because when that was revealed, we were all like, "Whoa, when did Link die? Like, when did he get killed?
Yeah.
Or get defeated?" And so it'd be really cool to see that part. But I'm also thinking that this could be right after Skyward Sword, and he was sealed away because in one of the Treehouse videos they mentioned the goddess Hylia, which was, the primary goddess of Skyward Sword, and it'd be really cool to see what happened after Skyward Sword. And maybe this is how Ganon becomes Ganon, or this is how all this happens. That'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I think a lot of people speculate it takes place sometime after the event of Skyward Sword. I mean, one thing to note in this is that there is a lot of Sheikah in this game. A whole lot of Sheikah. I
Interestingly
mean,
enough, we haven't actually seen any Sheikah people, just
well,
imagery.
we'll probably see that in the full version or like a future trailer, but oh, they're in there for sure. That's a fact.
Hmm. One since you brought up the Sheikah, let's bring up the tablet that Link had, the Sheikah Slate. It
Hmm.
was a book last year. It was a book in the little 13 seconds of footage, 13, 16 seconds of a camera panning around Link on Epona. That was a book. And then when more official art was released, some people said, well, now it kind of looks more like a stone tablet of some sort. And I looked at it and I'm like, it could be either. I'm not really sure. So I forget if it was in the trailer or I believe it was in the immediate live stream to follow, when they said, this is the Sheikah Slate, it kind of tells you what to do next. Um, can make waypoints, acts as binoculars. I'm like, okay, that's what we've seen. And he does keep it on his hip at all times. What do you guys think could be the possible lore behind this? It is obviously tied to the Sheikah, but like how? Why is it in the tomb with Link?
I think somebody left it there so that way when it was his time again, they would help him, get back on his feet and help him know what his new mission is. I think it was kept there by Ashika to help him, pretty much when he finally woke up again.
Yeah. Um, Alfred, I have a question specifically to ask you because I'm very interested in your answer to this. Not to be
Hmm.
mean to Kristen, but
No,
but what do you think of Nintendo including this Sheikah Slate in the game as a very instrumental item that Link will be using? Do you think it was a good choice, or do you think they should have just given Link like a telescope or something? Not have the Sheikah Slate. What do you think?
Well, I think there's two weird things about this, or there's one weird thing about this, but I think it's a good idea, because it consolidates a lot of a lot of items and a lot of menus. So you can use it. It's the main menu. It's the inventory. It's the telescope. It's the map. So all of it functions as like a bunch of different things, but at the same time, the thing that kind of is weird to me is that when I was watching the live stream, there wasn't a use. It wasn't being used on the gamepad. It was used on the main screen, which is weird that they're not using the Wii U gamepad to mirror the Sheikah Slate because it looks like a Wii U gamepad. That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's how they're going to use it in this game. I wonder how it's going to be used in the NX. But it's not being used that way.
Hmm.
It's being used as like the gamepad's just the controller and it's something that appears on the screen.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested to see or kind of interested to hear why they decided to not go with that. Maybe it has something to do with the NX. But I think it's a pretty cool new item that we get. I really like their inclusion of technology or what we see as like a primitive Sheikah technology into the game, which is something we've never seen before.
Mm. I have your answer as to why that's not on the gamepad. In an interview that I briefly scanned through looking for news during one of the breaks in the Treehouse stream, Aonuma talked about how previously at the Game Awards footage, he was using the map on the gamepad screen. And this time, there is no map on the gamepad screen. It's on the lower right hand corner of the TV screen. Now, he said this is because he liked having the map there at all times instead of having it on the gamepad. That doesn't add up. To me, I think that's a load of crap. I think they did that so they wouldn't have to change it around for the NX version. So people said, well, I like the
Yeah.
Wii U version better because you can use the gamepad this way. I think the gamepad is being underutilized now for I almost called it Zelda Wii U, Breath of the Wild, because it's being released simultaneously on Wii U and NX.
hmm
And I think that's something not a lot of people will complain about because I don't hear a lot of love for the gamepad. I personally really like the controller, but I really
Yeah.
don't. I really don't care if the map isn't on the gamepad. But I think for the same reason, the Sheikah Slate does not appear on the gamepad because, as Aonuma specifically said, Zelda Wii U, which is Breath of the Wild, on Wii U and NX, will be the same experience.
hmm
So I guess he didn't want the controls to be different, which I can understand that. What do you guys think?
Like the only gamepad feature I saw, and I brought this up to you before, like a half hour before we started this, was the mic thing. Where on the
Yeah, the
bottom
mic
right,
thing.
there's that
That's
little
weird.
mic thing. Yeah, that's the only gamepad feature I saw. I mean, other
Hmm.
than that, I don't know if they're actually adding anything else to the gamepad.
Yeah, on the Treehouse stream, if you'll notice on the bottom right hand corner, there's a small, I believe it's a circle with audio waves, purple audio waves, and the waves start moving when someone talks into the gamepad or is holding the gamepad and talks near it. It picks up the audio levels. Why does it do that? I mean, what is that? What does that accomplish?
I'd be interested to see if, like, going back and watching the live stream, if at a certain distance the moblins and the enemies recognize Link and the little purple waves are going up higher, and if it's like a stealth kind of thing, like the quieter you are when you play the game, the quieter Link is, and
Yeah,
so
that makes
enemies can't
sense.
So I
can't hear him
can't
or can't
blare
see.
ACDC in the background when I'm trying to sneak up on bokoblins.
I mean, you can, but you just wouldn't be sneaking up on
Yeah.
goblins.
Yeah, no highway to hell.
You'd be playing Metal Gear Solid all wrong, basically,
Yeah,
or all right.
well, that's true. And speaking of sneaking, a brand new sneaking mechanic is in Breath of the Wild. You can crouch and sneak like a lot of stealth games enable you to do, which I think is a great addition. If they didn't have that, I would be a little disappointed because sneaking up on Bokoblin camps was is one of the things I'm most looking forward to. I love kind of being stealthy. In the Wind Waker HD that I've been playing for the Bokoblin towers or Moblins, whatever the heck they are, I kind of sneak up the ladder and kind of walk slowly so they don't see me, and then come up from behind and sneak on them. That's something I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm glad they added this sneak option.
Before that, though, we need to talk about the fact that right off the bat, they showed that we can now jump in a Zelda game.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
my God, I
I was
flipped
like,
out
oh
when I saw that.
yeah, finally we can jump in a Zelda game. Um, and this again is a returning mechanic from Zelda 2. You could jump in Zelda 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm gonna
I'm
spend a good hour as soon as I get out of that bath, just jumping for a good hour, just saying, "Look, I can jump now."
Jumping
yeah,
and climbing are going to be really cool things that
yes,
we can
and
finally do in a
climbing.
Zelda game.
We saw Link climbing in the new art from a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Nate, editor in chief, Zelda Informer, Nathaniel Rumpeljans, the boss man, was saying, this art could it hint at a new climbing mechanic? And I'm like, I guess so. And right off the bat, we see Link climbing. He can climb up anything, and he can jump up things as he's climbing, and has like even like
Yeah,
a stamina gauge. And I'm like, holy crap, that's
yeah,
awesome.
but he's like Spider-Man though. Like there, I saw some shots where he climbed up a bare wall, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm up, and instead of just rock climbing, it's like he's literally Spider-Man in this game.
Yeah, I know the one thing he can't climb though. Uh, they specifically mentioned this during the last segment of the Treehouse stream, when they were in the last two shrines, I believe they're called, the mini dungeons. Link cannot climb up the walls there, because apparently they're really smooth. So I think that's the only thing Link can't climb up on. He can climb up basically anything else. I've seen, steep inclines that he's climbing up that go the other way. Like, and he's climbing up them. I'm like, how is he doing this? No mountain gear, no special Spider-Man gloves. I mean, it was
Slick
just,
walls, my only weakness.
yeah. So climbing, jumping, using the Sheikah tablet to, you know, make waypoints as binoculars, the sneaking mechanic. These are all mechanics that I think Nintendo put a lot of thought into, and they're doing right by adding them in Breath of the Wild. Do you guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. They've added just from watching over 5 hours this game, you can tell they put a whole lot of effort into this game because they know this is like the Wii U swan song. So they put everything into this game. You can definitely tell just from watching that.
Yeah, the Wii U's Swan Song and the NX, one of the NX's hopefully first games launch title.
Yeah.
Um, there's one more another mechanic that I'd like to point out is the food.
Oh yeah.
Did anyone pick that out? Like Link gathers items and then he can come
No more
across like a
hearts.
fire and mix them
You can eat
together.
a raw steak like a boss,
You can eat
apparently.
raw steak. I mean, it's amazing. And I know one treehouse employee said she just likes to take a bunch of ingredients, throw them all into like a cooking pot at a bokoblin camp, and just see what comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, the food, I like the food system. It's nice to see something else besides, hearts, choo-choo jelly potions,
Yeah, there are no
fairies.
hearts in this game. No pick
Mm-hmm.
uppable
Yeah.
hearts.
Well, there is going just the only thing is close thing is gonna be just the heart containers, but other than that, everything else is like you have to forage for your food, your
Well,
health.
we don't know if they're going to be heart containers though.
Yeah,
It looked
Link
like there
had
was a
3 hearts
specific.
all
It
throughout
looked
the
like there was a
Really?
stream.
specific way of like, cause halfway through the treehouse live, there were 3 yellow hearts following him, and
Mhm.
so that might be like food or an elixir or something. But I think the way that you would do it is, I'm imagining based on the way that this is going, it's some sort of like progression or something that some sort of food or something that you unlock after a while. It's not necessarily like, oh, beat this dungeon, get a heart, beat this dungeon, get a heart, or get a heart piece.
Yeah,
Um,
they definitely they used I don't know what it was, whether it was an elixir or food, but I know they definitely did eat something to give them temporary hearts, because I did take note of that. It temporarily for like, I don't know, 10 minutes gives you 3 extra hearts.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see later down the line there being like an item that permanently increases your hearts. It won't be a heart container, but it will be something that an item or food item that will help it permanently increase it.
I don't know, man. I kind of want to see the return of heart containers, but I can see Nintendo dropping those. Aonuma keeps
Yeah,
saying, I want to break the conventions of Zelda.
that's
Well,
what they kept on saying for 5 hours straight.
yeah. This is a big
and
world,
they
and we're
did.
breaking the conventions of Zelda. There, I just spoiled the entire live stream for you.
Yeah, that's essentially the theme of that entire treehouse presentation.
Yeah. But there's a lot more stuff in there.
Mhm.
One thing that I was immediately excited about because I've wanted a cameo from this guy for a long time. The old man. The old
I like
man
the
who's
old
like,
man
it's
in this one.
dangerous to go alone. Take this. He's back. He's back,
Oh,
guys.
I hated the tree. You know the annoying treehouse girls. I hated
Oh,
when
the
one of
ones
them
who
went.
kept Link shirtless in the snow?
Yeah, no, I hate. There's a part where the old man shows up in a dungeon, and they go, "Oh, he's about as annoying as the owl." I'm like, "No, he's not." From
Yeah,
what I've
he's
seen,
amazing.
he is the most. He is way more helpful than that owl from Ocarina.
Yeah, I mean, the owl's just like, oh, go here, do this, have a good day. But the old man's like, in the E3 demo, the old man literally gives you the glider sailcloth.
Yeah, and when you get to a top of a mountain, he'll see that you're cold, and he'll give you warm clothes.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazing. I was so happy to see him. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the original Legend of Zelda in 3D form. That's what it feels
Yeah,
like.
What I think is
definitely.
really cool is like when we saw for the in like a glimpse or like a distance, we saw the Temple of Time,
Yes,
and I was like, is that the Temple of Time?
yes, they
It's like
actually
there's no
went.
way.
They actually went to outside in the courtyard there, and on top of it, and there was a
Mhm.
little text popped up in the bottom left that said Temple of Time. So yes,
Yep. And that I was like that's really cool that they brought that back, and I can only wait to like I can't wait to see what else they brought back. And I loved seeing the Karoks. Like that was like, whoa, that
That took me
they're in
back.
this game now.
yeah, I was
I
like,
was wondering
wow,
like,
direct
so
Wind Waker
this may
reference.
yeah, this may have happened close to Wind Waker, or it may happen because that's not just any one of the Croaks. That's one specifically from Wind Waker. Like they all look different, and there was one that looked specifically like him.
Yeah,
So I'd be
Yeah,
there
interested to
were two
see.
of them that I counted. Two in the stream.
hmm And I'd be really interested to see where they came from, if the Great Deku Tree's here, um, because it looks like from what I could tell, like we've reported that they only have four main like big dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could see that being like, okay, there's the snow area, the fire area, the forest, and then um,
I
whatever
I believe there
else.
was a
probably like a
desert.
spirit temple or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so I could be like, I could see them doing a forest area with the Great Deku Tree and having to go on a quest there, and just kind of seeing maybe the return of some like familiar and unfamiliar characters. That would be really cool.
As long as the Great Deku Tree doesn't look messed up like he does in the Wind Waker.
He doesn't look that bad in the Wind Waker. You're over exaggerating.
Yeah, I am. One small mechanic that I wanted to talk about. Um, during the treehouse stream, they were on a hill looking down at a river. There are a lot of rivers in this game that we saw. There's waterfalls. There's a raft that returns from the original NES game. But there were fish down there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, fish can appear depending on the time of day." And I'm like, "Yes," because I love fishing. I love fishing in games. It's amazing.
Then watch me bomb all of them.
Yes, he's like, "Let's go fishing," and I'm like, "Oh, he's gonna pull out a fishing pole. Fishing returns," and then he pulls out a bomb, throws it in the water, and kills them. I'm like, "Oh my word,
That was amazing. That was my
bomb
favorite one of my
fishing!"
favorite parts of that presentation.
Yes. And hunting other animals too. You can hunt bison.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
mentioned
we hate our
twice.
bison.
They mentioned
Yeah, it's,
twice that you don't have to hunt, which I thought was, I guess, considerate of people that didn't want to harm, animals. But I'm gonna hunt the bison. I'm gonna eat the steak. Like,
Don't harm the animals, but slaughter all the bokoblins.
yeah, I think Peter will be at least halfway pleased. This is kind of a compromise. You don't have to harm the
I
animals.
I just like that there's actual animals, not just like enemy types. There are
Yeah,
actual like animals in this game that you
and there's
can
ducks
hunt.
too. Yeah,
And
Yep.
ducks. I heard the
wild
ducks. I'm like, holy.
horses, wild ducks, bison.
It's Minecraft.
Well, that's what I said. I tweeted out when Link started mining the ore, which is another mechanic. He started like mining or hitting a rock with like an axe, and some ore came out. And I tweeted out The Legend of Zelda Minecraft, and it got a couple likes. I'm like, yes.
One thing they didn't show a lot was nighttime cycle, and of course when it comes to Zelda games, the nighttime cycle, the most obvious enemy is the pose. We didn't see any of that. Barely saw any nighttime cycle stuff.
There
Like,
was one of the common enemies though is the Stalfos that comes out at night in Ocarina of
yeah,
Time. We did see those.
I know Stalfos, but I'm curious to see if they're bringing back the pose.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's kind of like, I know I talked about breaking the conventions of Zelda, and I assume that means bringing in some new enemies. And as
Hmm.
far as new enemies, we saw three. There was the Guardian. There was like a mini Guardian, and what was the other one that I can't? Oh yeah, there was like a big. It was like a big stone
The rock
bug.
thing.
Yeah, rock thing. I can't even remember the
Yeah.
name of it. It was weird. But then we have Keese, Choo Choos, of course the Bokoblins. So I wonder if we will see the pose or what other familiar enemies.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So back to the mining mechanic. We saw a lot, and I mean a lot, of different ore. I think there was like 6, 7 different types of ore that Link collected in the duration of the 6-hour live stream. I think they'll be used to, upgrade your weapons. But I'm wondering if instead of that, you'll be able to sell them at towns. Because there are rupees in this game. We didn't see rupees at all in the stream, but one of the treehouse employees said, no, you could sell that for a lot of rupees. And I'm like, okay, so there are rupees. They just haven't shown them yet. So what do you guys think that the ore will be used for?
Upgrading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely upgrading. If we're talking anything like Skyrim, they're more or mainly gonna be used to upgrade items and weapons because Anuma already confirmed that you can do that for in this game. So yeah, crafting new stuff.
Yeah.
I
Again,
think that's going to be its
Minecraft.
biggest use. Yeah. Well, like, 'cause if we're talking about like upgrading, okay, so it's like, oh, well, my sword's running low on iron or steel, or like that's the only way to repair it. Okay, well, I've got X amount of ore of this kind. I'm just going to repair it, or I'm going to fortify it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of a thing. Kind of like, I don't know. That kind of brings me to like brings me memories of Dark Souls with fortifying your sword with different ores.
Yeah.
Which, Dark Souls has always been kind of related to Zelda as being a darker, more gritty, like difficult version of Zelda. And it's kind of cool to see some elements from that make it into this. And I know that they might not be like directly harkening back to Dark Souls, but that is a mechanic that you see in very few games now,
Yeah.
but is still in Dark Souls, still in a few other games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think we only have a few mechanics left to talk about. Um, we talked about the new sailcloth, which, by the way, looked amazing. I
Hmm.
figured that would change, and it's not called the sailcloth anymore. It's called the paraglider,
Yeah.
and there's stamina with that. But another thing I wanted to talk about is they kept referring to the starting area as the plateau. There's 4 shrines at the plateau, the mini dungeons. And then from there, you can jump off in any direction you want in any part of the world, which we did get a small glimpse of during the last couple segments, but we really didn't see any massive gameplay there. Um, so I'm wondering, what is beyond the plateau that Nintendo doesn't want us to see, and why the E3 demo and the Treehouse stream, for the most part, only is on the plateau.
I think the main reason is because the other areas outside the plateau are probably heavily story based, or they're like towns and NPCs. They're and they're all part of the story, so they don't want you to go out there just yet because well we haven't really talked about the story.
Yeah, and they said that. There was a bit of controversy going on. I saw on Twitter, for a moment, people were like, "Oh, a representative said there's no, groups of NPCs. There's no towns or villages." And I'm like, "Well, that kind of sucks, but whatever." But then, someone came out and said, "No, that's wrong. There is towns and villages." And then Aonuma cleared it up. He said, "There is towns and villages," or it was Bill Trinan. There are towns and villages, but they're not in the E3 demo or the live stream because we don't want to spoil anything, because in the original Zelda, you went in not knowing what the story was. And they said, they don't want to spoil the story now either. They just want you to figure it out on your own.
They were walking by an area towards the very, very tail end of one of the like segments of the streams, and there were like these pillars that looked like they had some sort of inscriptions on them, and I think it was I don't remember the name, but it was who the girl that was playing walked up to him, and I think it was Bill Trent was like, "Oh, we shouldn't go over there. That's a big story plot, so we should just go ahead and move on somewhere else." It's like we don't want to spoil that for him. So
Yeah,
even
I
in that
respect that.
area, yeah, even in that
Yeah,
area,
same.
then there's still things that can be seen and things that can be found
Hmm.
that are story related. So it's not just like, okay, well, this is the starting area. There's absolutely nothing to see here except just to get used to the game. So it's a very, I think they took a lot out that is in the starting area that we will see once we play the game. Like for sake of like spoilers.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
and that's another thing about the story not wanting to be spoiled and finding it out for yourself, like in the original Zelda. There was an entire segment with Aonuma and Bill Trinan about how this game draws a lot of inspiration from the first Zelda on NES.
Yeah,
How you just dropped into the world, meet the old man, then boom, that's it. Go where you want. You can find dungeons wherever. They specifically mentioned the raft and showed it, and they're like, "Oh, here's the raft from the NES game." I'm like, "Sweet."
there was one. I believe there was one segment where Anuma was on, and they showed how like some parts of it were inspired by the original NES game. They showed that art shot of like Link kneeling down in the NES version, looking at the mountains,
Yeah,
and they recreated that little shot. And apparently, I think Trenin or Anuma said they did recreate those same mountains in the game.
yeah, they did. They're
Yeah.
called the Twin Peaks, I believe. Near the end, there was a little video segment where Link was paragliding through the Twin Peaks, and they're like, "Oh, there's the Twin Peaks from the manual."
Yeah, and they like I saw they even posted up like a picture of it just as a comparison shot to
Yeah,
show it. Yeah.
which I really like, because it's fan service, but it's not going too far out of the way to be like, "Oh, this is fan service." Um, I feel a lot of criticism for reboots today, as far as movies and games go, is that they go too far with the fan service. So, new fans who are just getting in are like, "What is going on? I don't get all of this."
Yeah, they
Uh,
don't get the joke, you
with
know.
with Breath of the Wild, I think it's going to draw a lot of new fans, because I saw on Twitter, a lot of people like, "I've never played a Zelda game before, but this looks amazing." So I think the amount of fan service that Nintendo is putting out, the subtle stuff, the game isn't based around just fan service. It's based around making a great game inspired by the first one. But, it's an experience that everyone will be able to enjoy right off the bat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And the speaking of like not necessarily fan service, but things that like they mentioned that like kind of were a joke in the treehouse that not a lot of people would get if they weren't Zelda fans from the past, was in Skyward Sword. If you may so fondly remember how every time you picked up an item,
Oh,
it told you about that item,
yes.
and they picked up an item in the game and it told you about it, and then the guy stopped and he's like, okay, so what's great about this game is you pick up an item once and it tells you about it, but then for the rest of the game you don't hear about it, you already know what that item is. And I was like, okay, I feel like he's commenting on Skyward Sword, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
Well, definitely, because in Skyward Sword, one of the beefs I have with that game is those stupid, like, gold artifacts, or whatever the heck they're called. The little gold
The
things with a
ambers.
hole in the middle that you pick up every time you play, and it'll tell you what it is. I always
Hmm.
see that meme. "Oh, you've collected 45 of these. Let's learn about it again." Once you collect one in Breath of the Wild, once you collect an item, it'll tell you about it, then it will never tell you about it again. And I think that's
Hmm.
Oh,
awesome.
Oh yeah, like I've been playing Ocarina of Time 3D a lot recently, and it's like every time you pick up a Skulltula, it reminds you about the Gold Skulltula side quest. It's
Yeah,
like it constantly has to remind you. Oh, by the way, this is a Gold Skulltula, gold icon. Make sure to send it to such and such. I'm like, I get
yeah.
it.
It's like, yeah, I've played the game for a while now. I kind of know this. I already have like 30 Skulltulas.
Yeah. Even the final one, I think it adds a little dialogue. Even the final one getting the final Skulltula still has the same exact kind of freaking dialogue.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, you collected the last one, go get your reward. It's like, you can collect all of these throughout the world. It's like, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so I think we covered the majority of the news. Do you guys have anything else that you want to comment on?
The voice acting.
The voice acting, yes, that's a big thing.
Yeah, because
We
they
heard
confirmed.
"Wake Up, Link" at the beginning of the trailer.
Yeah, and they confirmed there is more voice acting. The Game Informer, it was the Game Informer article, I think,
I
was
believe
they
so.
confirmed. Yeah, they confirmed. Oh, no one confirmed. Yes, there's more voice acting, but he didn't confirm how much more. Was it everybody except Link, or is it like only certain story-driven characters? He
Mm-hmm.
didn't wasn't clear on that.
Yes, which I think is a good stepping off point. Instead of going, whole hog and saying, "Oh, by the way, every character has voice acting," because I don't believe the old man had full
He
voice
didn't.
acting. He did?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't. So I think it's good that there's going to be some voices, um, just not, every character, which I think is a good kind of just getting into it experience that maybe, the next Zelda game will have more voice acting. It's just testing the waters right now.
Well, I think the deal with that is Zelda's a cross-cultural game, and so it's very popular in the East and it's very popular in the West. And if they had voice acting for the entire game for every character except for Link, they'd have to go through and redo all of that voice acting unless they, wanted to just do subs.
Yeah.
But I don't see Nintendo fully committing to that. Like Xenoblade Chronicles X had full dubbing, and that was a massive undertaking. And with all the things that they're trying new in Breath of the Wild, I think that it would only, I want to say this, it would have only one cost more and then probably delayed the game more to get full voice acting for every region.
And we don't need another delay.
I think
Yeah,
at
no.
best we're going to probably get like American voice track and like a Japanese voice track, and that's it.
Hmm.
Yeah. And about the voice acting, the voice that we heard at the beginning of the trailer, it said "Wake up, Link." Who is that?
Hylia.
Is it Hylia? Is it Zelda? I mean, who's telling Link to wake up?
Is there a difference between Hylia and Zelda?
Well, this is true.
Touche.
um,
I say
it all
Zelda.
depends on where this is in the timeline, I guess.
Mm.
I say
Which-
Zelda.
Yeah, I mean, which is another thing. Like, where the heck is this in the timeline? I kind of wish that it was a reboot of the timeline. I think Alfred actually did a daily debate about that.
Yeah, I think so. It
Yeah,
would have been a reboot.
yeah, a reboot of the series, which I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a reboot of the timeline. Not a lot of people like it.
Or it could just take place after all of the timeline crap.
And reunify them again.
Yeah, like I said, it would still be considered a reboot. Like, sorry, a little off topic, like with the God of War game. Kratos is now doing of Norse gods. So yeah, of course we're gonna reboot of it.
You mean Dad of War?
Yeah, God of War.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
God of War. Yeah, but that's what they did. Instead of just calling it God of War 4, they knew it's gonna be a whole new setting, a whole new character and stuff. So they just called it God of War.
Yeah.
So I can see them doing it in Zelda, where it just takes place after the entire timeline, and it's just a new unified piece in the history of Zelda.
Yeah. Whew, man, there's a lot of information to take in.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna kind of wrap it up then.
Yeah,
Correct?
let's wrap it up. I mean, we've been
Okay.
going for about 45 minutes, and I know the crew at E3 is going to be recording a new episode of the podcast. They're all going to be together in one room, and I'm sure they're going to be talking about Breath of the Wild for hours. So if you want more Breath of the Wild discussion, you should check on the site to see when the next episode of the podcast is up. They're recording that
Yeah.
tonight.
hopefully they'll be able to play the game too, because I heard about the line.
Hmm.
Yeah, and by the way, Breath of the Wild is amazing. I just needed to say that. That game, I mean, it looks perfect.
Oh my god, it looks magnificent. It looks
Yeah.
like the one of the best looking Zelda games I've seen in a long time.
It is the best looking Zelda game, period, graphic wise and visually wise.
Hmm.
Like, and I told you earlier, imagine this on the NX if the rumors about the NX's power is true.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it'll be awesome. I plan on getting it for both.
So to kind of wrap it up then, let's just go around and say what our favorite thing about this reveal was.
Okay.
And we'll start, I guess we'll start with Kristen.
Crap. Okay, it's kind of stuck. It's kind of stuck between just jumping and the open world, because while the open world is massive and great, and there's so much you can do just from watching the 5 straight hours of it is
Mm-hmm.
great. But
And that it wasn't even one. That was 1% of the game. They're like, they're like. By the way, this area is 1% of the map. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
yeah. But then again, there's also the jump button, something that the tiniest little thing that fans been asking for quite a while now.
Yeah.
But in the end, though, I would have to say the open world, because there's so much you can do. They've already confirmed there's over like 100 mini dungeons, and there's like
The
you can do
shrines.
them in
Yeah.
any, you can pretty much do them in any order, and the variety of stuff you can do without actually having to touch the main quest. And I think the open world overall for me is the big thing.
Mm.
Okay. Darren.
All right. Mine is kind of the world. It's just a screwing around aspect of it. Like just
Yeah.
going around exploring, gathering everything, raiding the camps, chopping down trees to cross the rivers, just exploration and discovery of that huge world. I'm going to waste days and weeks doing that before, I even get anywhere with the main quest.
That's what I do when it comes to open world games too. It's like, oh, there's a bunch of side quests you can do. Oh, but there's also make side quests. I
Yeah.
want to see everything.
Yeah, like I before I even, try to seriously power through the main quest, I'm just gonna go around and explore and beef up my items and discover. That's my favorite part about this game is I can go around and discover things, which is something that has been severely limited in past Zelda games.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Alfred, it is your turn. You are on the spotlight. Don't mess us
Oh,
up.
so I agree with the whole open world and exploration thing, but I feel like this is going to be the most story-driven Zelda game we've gotten
Oh yeah.
yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
And
yeah, true.
I am a big fan of good stories in video games, and so
Yes.
I'm so excited to see where this goes because, like, I think you said it on the podcast, Darren, that the Sheikah is something that hasn't really been explored in any Zelda game. It's just been
Mm-hmm.
hinted at.
Yeah.
But it seems like they have a huge part to play, and maybe Link's Sheikah in this game. Maybe he's not Hylian.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be interesting. Like I said earlier on this recording, was that there's she really Sheikah heavy, and I think that's gonna be the main story drive, is finding out more about the Sheikahs in their early time, if it takes place after Skyward.
Mm-hmm.
hmm And I just think that that's really cool because, the motto for Nintendo has always been like every time they've talked about story is, well, we're gameplay first, then story second. And I've always felt that stories have kind of suffered because of that mindset. But it looks like at this time they've decided to go, okay, well, gameplay and story are just as important as each other. Like they're both important, and we need to focus equally on both of them. Like have a good story and a good gameplay.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really excited to see because we already see that there's great gameplay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm really, really, really hoping that this story is great because so far from what we've seen, it's like, okay, I have no idea what's going on, but I can't wait to find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that marks the end of this episode of ZI Reacts. Breath of the Wild
Hmm.
looks awesome. You guys want to give a quick shout out for your Twitter handles?
I don't have a Twitter, but I like to promote my YouTube channel if I can.
Go ahead.
Me and my brother do a reaction video series called Super Reaction Bros. We pretty much react to, well, we've reacted to E3 this past week, and so far we've also reacted to movie trailers, things like that, television episodes. So check it out. We're youtube.com/Super Reaction Bros.
Nice. Nice. Alfred.
Okay. My Twitter is at RealDern, RealDern.
For those who
I
don't know,
post
that is actually my Twitter.
I post funny things and I repost Alfred a lot.
Yeah, you're something Metal Alfie.
Full Metal Alfie.
Yeah, Full Metal Alfie. Okay.
I think that's me.
Yes, and as he said before, my Twitter, RealDern, RealDer, and I tweet stuff about Zelda, Nintendo, gaming, comedy, whatever. Make sure to tune into the next episode of the Zelda Informer podcast for more in-depth discussion, different opinions, and a lot of Breath of the Wild. Thanks, guys.
Definitely, because they'll play it, yeah.
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 Peace.